the hell is Zio?
Who the hell are you?
Cancelled. That's who. How do you let my grand introduction just end like that?
Oh, that Sentai thing that only did like 2 videos and that's about it? Look, Zio's been gone for a while. He said he was gonna go out for some cigarettes and milk, but, you know, he hasn't come back. But, it's been like 4 months. He'll be back eventually.
What? What? Zio doesn't smoke? You know he left us, right?
Maybe, but not me. I'm fine. I've been doing my own thing in this time here.
You're ninja, aren't you? Can't you track him down?
First of all, gross. Why you gotta say it like that? Second of all, I'm sure he's fine. And what's the holdup? I'm just trying to play overpriced, not packing game. $500.
Signal.
Wait, was that? Switch to can wait. That's a rare Kemi. There you are. The legendary Sig Milk Kemi card. Guess it's time to do this how Gotchard should have done it. Hey, wait! Now there's... I'm gonna say 100 gorillas now. Alright, Kemis, don't let me down. Yeah, I'm just gonna accept that I'm dying, so. Come on. Wait, what in the name of stock footage is that?
Sword Picker!
Everybody gets one.
Oh my god! Am I actually making a video again? What's the world come to? Oh, and I stopped making proper content that's not a live stream, and then I hit 4K subs? Sounds about right. But listen, I do understand it's been a hot second since I've made a proper video. Those who actually notice, in my channel page, there's a little tab that says live on it, which you would know what the up and up was, but, you know, I guess, to summarize, Xenoblade X got re-released, and that shit was fire. Allergies beat me up. I was focusing all of my creative juices into making my Fies cosplay for Ranger Stop Atlanta, which, spoiler alert, I won that cosplay contest. And yeah, look, I'd be lying if making videos for 3 years and being outclassed by others who have teams either working on their videos or just have that tight circle that help promote each other doesn't take a toll on a guy mentally. For as niche as the community is, there's still haterade being sipped on, and I too may partake from time to time. But look, that's beyond the point because we're here to discuss kid shows and the adults who take their plots way too seriously. That's right, me. That's what I do. So, look, I realize since my last video like 45 years ago, a lot's happened in Kamen Rider Gavv, and I'd probably die in the editing table covering everything that I've done without turning it into some large history of video with better narration. So, I'm gonna change the format a little bit and start with what everyone usually gives me shit for. That's right, it's time for Zio Agito's nitpicks about Kamen Rider Gavv that everyone will treat as me looking too deeply at a show and objectively taking the wrong message that I now hate this show, and it doesn't matter what else I say because you'll still think that I hate this show. Out of context set that I'm sure everyone will completely take at face value. Alright, let's go ahead and get this started with number 5. What the hell is up with the forms on this half of the show? Now, I'm not talking about the forms themselves, I'm talking about their debuts. Now, I think we can all agree that K-King's debut was a masterclass in both storytelling and character growth. That ended up progressing into peak fight. The forms afterwards just didn't hit the same. Yes, I talked about Sorbet previously, but Frappe? It's kind of the same thing. This is a new driver unit that was a copy of what Nirub made, and runs on a completely different style of Gochizo. But through sharing a drink with Hanto, Shoma just gives out a compatible Gochizo. And look, in the latest episode, Flam's new upgrade was a similar vein. The build-up to these things are just gone, and really just runs into a reliance on Shoma. Honestly, early on, because of the transplant Hanto had, I thought that eventually the guy would just be able to produce his own Gochizo. But I guess not, especially since we don't know how the familiar system works. The Stomach family, minus Dente, seem to have the capability, but then so does the president, yet no other Granoots are shown to. And of course, I thought the in-show explainer back then would be because of eating the dark candy would remove the ability, but Laki is clean. Now back on topic a little bit, because we have the Overmaster bottle that was made as a failsafe by Dente, but since there was no proper build-up to it, and the Gochizos figured it out kinda quickly, it left no room for tension. But then you look at some of the stuff happening in recent episodes, some of the Gochizos that Shoma's been pulling out are just immortal, like K-King and Ala Mode. So wouldn't the Cure-All be making more of those and having those go inside the bottle so they aren't used up? See, though I like the look of the last few forms, their debut really felt less narrative driven and more sales driven, if you get what I'm talking about, with the narrative just trying to work around that concept. But on to the next one, number 4. Filler episodes, I guess? Look, it was bound to happen, and I mean it happens with most shows, where we've got a few set of what feels like filler episodes. Like coming right out of Act 2 and going into Act 3, it does feel more tonally toned down, and I get that. You get Gottschalk's writer to write while the head writer is likely out working on the film, and we get red herrings to some bonding synergy to get Hanto and Lakia to link up. Literally. And even cue sounds that makes it sound like we're about to get Whatcha Fire. But that's just 29 and 30. I think the worst offender of this case was 37 and 38. Episodes that just felt like we had conflict resolution with Hanto with the long speculated wolf Granoot that actually was a hyena, and although I felt 37 and 38 were fine, that last minute of episode 38 made those two episodes literally worthless. Besides Jipu's new Gavv and beatdown with the fake out death, in actuality, you can skip both of these episodes and nothing would change, which takes me to my next nitpick. The handling of Komel's death. So, since starting Act 3, we had the red herring of Komel's killer, and previously we had the scene of Nirub, Rango, and Glota all being in a room discussing Komel with none of them having any idea about the guy. So all that we had to go by was just a scar and that he was literally in just Granoot world when he got the shank. Now look, the newly introduced Lizelle was actually on my bingo card for who did it, because of previously mentioned scene and to tie her into one of the trio of writers. After all, Glota should be a bigger villain to Shoma because after what she did to his mom. Remember, after the pressing, she still just, rubbed the salt in the wounds. And Lizelle wandering the streets of Commoners is literally how she ran into G. So, if she ran into annoying Komel, I wouldn't put it behind her to beat him up just for getting in her way. But no, it's Glota. And you know what? I would have been semi-okay with taking that theory L if it wasn't for episode 38. Why? Well, you see, when she killed Komel, she left the body, like he wandered back to the house and died. And when she killed Dente, he also was just laying there, dead with a scar. But in episode 38, when she killed that hyena Granoot, he busts into flames and leaves no trace of himself. There's an inconsistency there that I just don't like. See, I felt if they wanted to handle that better than the Granute shouldn't have faded, because then it also would trigger a character moment in Hanto. But that inconsistency in Glotus' attack literally makes those meaningless. And all that goes right in hand with the next point, the handling of Glotus' character. And this is a very short point, and it's only because of something that was recently introduced into the story, because now we start working in that Glota had always cared about her family. She was the connective glue for them. Just like when her and the others had to dip for the twins' birthday because, they had business to run. That is some delicious, delicious connective glue. And finally, number 1. Bitter Gavv is still the worst thing introduced to the show. I mean, look, even after the fact, this thing is just a cost-saving measure, but it's not adding anything of value to the show. I will say that at least during Act 2, they had some purpose because they were making their own Gochizos and stood apart from Shoma. But now, since they're being transplanted, do they still have the ability to make Gochizos, or is it Nirub just making them himself? Does Jipu still have the ability to produce agents, or can he also make Gochizos? Although it doesn't weigh on the show as much as it previously did, it's still just a thing that happened. Okay, so my critics are now about to take these points now and stop watching or leave those scathing comments I see from time to time. Now, let's look at the opposite of that, and that is Zio Agito's things I actually liked about these episodes of Gavv that people are still going to ignore. The end of the Suga arc. This was like Revice's Juga arc, done right. We finally get Shoma out of his mental block. Suga is egging Hanto on by being the best villain he can be. But you still get that twinge that he was just pushing for Hanto to become the very best. If anything, I wish it had gone on a little bit longer. We got the seeds for something that hasn't been paid off as of this recording. But given the handling of the plot thus far, I really hope that it ends up being reserved for a V cinema. Number 4. The Stomach Family's reaping of what they sow. Man, remember when Rango's entire thing was just to get into high society, for them to get a taste of that good candy, just so they can join the upper class? Ha ha ha! Got him! Because look, they out here bootlicking to the president, and he's just an errand boy now, at least for a bit. Jeep's been shitting on Akagavv for so long, and now look at you! Look at you! You got that off-brand one, and you still got your ass beat. I have enjoyed these guys, definitely, getting their comeuppance. Reap what you sow. Reap what you sow. Number 3, finding Shoma's other family. I do actually like this subplot, and I wish it would played more into these episodes thus far, but they've been playing it very, very slowly that hopefully, by the time this is out, we'll get our payoff very, very soon. I mean, look, the amount of episodes we got left, it's gotta happen, right? But yes, I do feel that this is giving Shoma a piece of home that he's lost. Now, for a while now, we've gotten that candy shop owner that I think is likely Shoma's maternal uncle. But it still shows that Hanto is trying to make things up to Shoma after putting him through that mental block for far too long. But I do hope that the payoff is good, because it will give Shoma just something else to really fight for. Because now he's actually got a family that potentially would actually care about him. Number 2. That Rango fight though. Oh boy. It's like someone was out here watching the original Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailer and was like, yeah, that's that guy. He's just old Noctis. And I was all about it. The aura shields, the censored airplanes, the peak Granute form. Now that's final boss energy right there. And I love every moment of each of those fights. But I do think that Longo's playing it smart by taking a dive as an excuse to no longer play the pawn in what was supposed to be his game. And finally, number 1, those final forms. And with that, let's talk form. Am I still doing the podium thing? Nah, I should go back. This thing's Hot. Rappe Valen out here ends up taking the shake on my favorite Valen form, especially with those rough edges that look very similar to lightning bolts. The color symmetry here is great and it fits well for a final form's look. I just wish someone sucked on that backstraw more. Now is that some Kirame silver or what? Definitely an homage to it, though he still is rocking the clogs, which, I mean, literally, what are those syndromes? But everything else about this is just a lot more subdued and more silverware than food. Yes, I get the image on the ankles, the flan kneecaps. All that aside, this is the best Vlam has looked, and it does give off them fancy vibes. And finally, we have our Over and Master Gavv. And out of the two, Master is the most in line with what to expect. It's similar to how Geats 9, Ultimate Revice, and 02 are just a more sleek, streamlined visual versions of what their base forms were. Over mode is a little bit too much of a deviation color-wise, but I do understand what they're going for here. It's similar to an Agito Burning versus Agito Shining, except, you can flip-flop between the two. But unlike how I felt about Vlam and Valen's final forms, I don't think either of these are Gavv's best looking form. That's still probably gotta go to K-King for me. Now, look, I know I shit on bitter Gavv a lot. I still really love that suit though. And its Baki Baki Sticks form is, ooh, what the hell is that? Oh my god. Okay, so look, this is proof concept that sometimes things are better in action than the photos, because if I was just to go based off of this stock photo, yeah, no, this ain't it. But as much of a legend this form looks like, I do like that it does appear much better in motion, and like Gavv's forms, actually has the textures on the fries, which is something that is a good attention to detail when it comes to a lot of Gavv's forms. That being said, that doesn't apply to this next one. Fake and bitter Gavv's take on it. Which, I mean, look, bitter Gavv's got the better undersuit, and that's it. But this is literally just a repaint of the same armor as base bitter with some vinyl on it. It doesn't even have that texture quality that we normally get with these forms. Thus, an overall just downgrade. Rating time! Alright, so I'm gonna quickly summarize some of the key things about these episodes and go through them all because it is a lot. So, look, I was talking about Suga's arc before, so real quickly, 27 and 28, stomach ass. 29 and 30 is the start of the next arc and what feels like a rush return to the swing towards the endgame. We do fundamentally get more world building on the Grenade Society front, but overall it did feel like a little too back to basics, resulting in both of them getting some build beats. 31 get to see. Look, that just felt awkward. It kind of felt like we were watching a hyper battle video. 32! Now that's actually an improvement. Toning things back with Lakia explaining himself to Hanto, but we did get that clunky green screen Dente Nidorbseed seed. But overall, the quality was much better in that one, so it moves up to a B. Then there's the next two. Look, I get the consistent 2-episode structure, but these episodes are something that they should have stretched a little bit more. Like have Shoma not be able to transform, get his face caved in, and then have them regroup and figure things out, and then get the cooking montage. Having the Gochizo just figure it out made it feel a little too sudden. 33 would have been a high B, almost A, while 34 does barely hit that A mark for me. Actually, if I was doing these reviews weekly, 34 would have still been an A, but much higher. But sadly, Dente's fake out death was a thing that happened. So yes, 33, B, 34, A. 35, okay, alright, look, it was an episode that was pretty alright, pretty solid, until we got to that final portion. That Lango showing everyone who's boss and literally driving everyone on edge? That should get in that Agito. Hey! 36 built on that tension and gave some good setups of what to come, with a fight that did not fail to satisfy, but with the obvious fake out energy, I still gotta give it that stomach ass. 37, in hindsight, I would have given a much lower score. But the episode itself is honestly just a C. That being said, 38 makes this episode and itself feel virtually useless. Like I said, I'm giving 37 the benefit of the doubt if I was just to watch it in a tunnel. If I was still reviewing these episodes on a weekly basis, it would have been a C. 38 would have dragged that thing immensely down. But I'm not doing that. Once again, benefit of the doubt. 38 makes this episode just no. The more I sat on the implications of that ending, the more I hated it. And that's why 38 is gonna have to get that fabled Forze ass. 39. Throughout these last few episodes, we've had consistently annoying fakeouts towards Dente dying. But this is the one. While throwing in some Glota plot that they just started shoehorning in the last few episodes, almost feeling like they were trying to get some redemption for this character, with her lashing out on Dente and killing him, but still leaving a body for Lakia to notice. But no, it especially after the last episode, and then you throw this one into the mix, it's getting another C. 40 ends this plot point for Glota, with Lakia getting his revenge, Shoma conveniently popping out the Gochizo Lakia needed based off a dish that was intended for Dente to enjoy with everyone. Though I could be harsher on this episode, the nitpicks were those addressed before, that Glota's newfound characterization felt tacked on last minute, and the plot of her being the one responsible for Komel's death is still feeling like something that was just thrown in last minute to close the plot threads. But the execution was still pretty good, and once again, a tease of what's to come. So with that, it's getting that Build B. So, as of right now, episode 40. Is Gavv a perfect season? No. Is it so far the best Reiwa's gotten? Yes, I would say so, at least so far. I really feel it's hard for any show to be perfect. And if all shows were just banger after banger, then this franchise and medium would be much larger than it actually is. And that being said, I do get criticized for my taste, that I'm too tied into what Kamen Rider was and not what it is now. And although I do have nostalgia for a lot of the shows that I first watched when I was a kid, I do admit that even those had their faults. And like Gavv, a lot of these shows struggled when they started trying to key up a lot of their plot points towards the end. For example, I felt that the introduction of the Orphanaut King and that whole last part of Faiz fumbled the ball. But Faiz is still my favorite Kamen Rider season. Kabuto, another one of my favorites. We don't talk about those final episodes. Kiva, another good one. Fumbled that ending. Double. I completely blocked that final episode from my mind and just had it be brought back up when we watch Fudo PI on Twitch. I say all that with context to say that sure, Gavv is stumbling to close its open plot threads as we head towards its finale. Does that ultimately mean that I hate the show? No. The hell? Have y'all seen my ratings throughout? You guys know that I do an aggregate score at the end of these. It's a rule of averages. What's this show averaging? Really good. Unless they massively shit the bed these last couple of episodes, it's still going to be probably my best reviewed writer show on this channel. I make theories all the times, as most folks do when watching these types of shows. And we go into these knowing that there's a high probability that what we theorize won't be the answer. Because I know a bunch of folks that are mad at the Hyena Granu, mostly because it wasn't Shoma. But I just hated how it was overall handled. But that's the thing, we take these L's as they come by. It's the fun portion of theory crafting, especially on a week-to-week show. You get to build on that momentum. If this show was dumped all at once, then you wouldn't have the fun theory writing. Then again, a lot of these shows would probably wear their welcome if they were just done all at once. See, on the theory front, there's things like the embryo of K that Suga's working on that still hasn't been addressed. Nirab, I thought, would have taken things to a much more extreme, but I'm still feeling that he might still be the final baddie as he continues to build some guinea pigs. It's just whether he continues the scientist role to make the ultimate being, or he does things to himself to be the superior being himself. There are things from earlier in the show that I thought would be a thing that didn't end up being. Like, remember when Rango made his human world debut? And they had this entire moment scene of him with Sachika being the first to encounter him and getting those vibes. I thought that they would do more with that, but they haven't interacted since. Kanto had a plot point of him becoming more and more Granute as time passed by. But after the end of the Suga arc, it's like they forgot that was a thing. Once we got to the introduction of this Granute high society, all the sowing that was reaped was a thing. But it's clear to see that Rango's building a coalition behind the scenes as he's presumed to be MIA, to take control away from the president. But we don't know how strong he himself is in comparison. But it does appear that they're trying to do some sort of character redemption arc for both Rango and Glota, while G continues going stir-fry crazy. And Nirab keeps doing what he's trying to do, especially now that he's got the proper funding. Now, I'm at a point of just seeing how this ride lands with the plot points and how ultimately we see if the show maintains that high pedigree that it does honestly deserve. But then, it comes to pass if they actually just ended up bending the knee to shilling those toys. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? I know it's been a bit, but how you feeling about this post-Suga Gavv? How are all these plot point resolutions being handled in your opinions? Back, I'm recharged, I've got no gaming or building addictions as of now, so after goes Yudra's catch-up, we should be good, right? Right? Okay, that's it for me. I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, bye.